everybody, welcome. This is Carol here from Practical Mystic, bringing you part 2 of the Queens in the Court Cards series that we've been doing. And I would like to do just a real quick recap on all the Queens. Their attributes are said to be of the water element. That means all Queens are water, as well as their individual elements of their suits. Astrologically, they are under what is considered a quality, also known as a modality in astrology. There are 3 of them. It is mutable, fixed, and cardinal, and all the Queens come under the fixed modality. So let's begin with the Queen of Swords. Her astrological fixed sign is Aquarius, which rules this card. Yet, let's remember that the essence of the Queen of Swords and that air element can also pertain to the 2 other air signs of the zodiac, which of course are Gemini and Libra. But the Aquarius is prominent in this. What is the Aquarius personality? We'll talk about that a little bit. It's a self-expressive sign, a progressive thinker. They're known for their originality, humanitarian attributes, and sometimes they can be nonconformist. What we have here in the Queen of Swords is we have the properties of water and air. And that is somewhat antagonistic, and they have to kind of find a way to balance those energies within themselves, if that is how your chart sets up. But certainly the cards has those 2 attributes. Now, saying water and air, we immediately can think of the fluidity in this card, the amount of activity and movement of both of those elements. We can say that we're blending the intellect, air, with the intuition, water. So the Queen of Swords has both of those properties. Now, she's sitting on a very ornate design on her throne. Of course, the throne in all of the Queens are black and gray. They indicate the blending of 2 opposites when we get the color gray, but black tells us that we have understood the unknown and the hidden truths. The throne is fashioned with this elegant curve shape, and basically that indicates the way that she can use language. She can articulate. Her language flows easily. She can be quite convincing. That's what those can indicate. Now we see butterflies. We see them on her crown, and we see butterflies below at the base and the side of her throne. And butterflies can indicate the soul. Butterflies can symbolize transformation. But because we also have this winged angel on the top part of her beautiful throne here, there's incarnation, there's change, and there's evolution going on in this card. It's very, again, fluid, changeable, in motion, the rebirth, the aspects of the sword being able to kill or save, again, having to do in whose hands it is. In a talented surgeon, he can cut away, or she can cut away the cancer. In a misguided individual, the sword can kill and maim. So there's that 2-edged sword modality, as well as this mystical rebirth, transformation, incarnation, and evolution. Now, there are 2 tiny little birds at the base of her throne. You really can't see them unless you really look. And then this is the butterfly in between them. And then above them, you have the two waxing and waning moons, and then two new butterflies. So again, you've got this feeling of reincarnation, regeneration, and transformation. Basically, her aim, the Queen's aim, is to seek higher knowledge, to discard what is no longer useful, what is no longer pertinent, maybe what is no longer just and truth. That is definitely being symbolized. Now, we can say that this also symbolizes the natural process by the simplicity of her crown made up of butterflies and also rubies in between them. And she also has, looks to be jewelry, but definitely red rubies around her neck. And red is desire, and rubies have many ways that we can interpret them. But one of them is that it gives you good fortune. It was said to protect you if you wore them. Definitely you had them in the crowns of the noble. It also indicated courage, and we see that very close to her, around her neck where she wears her rubies, and of course the ones on her crown, this courage to continue, to have faith in even those things that you may not understand or perceive clearly as of yet, but to go forward and to keep going. This is the only, or I should say the beginning of where we see a complete sword. We don't see a complete sword in the page or the knight. And what that means is that the page and the knight had ambition, and they had purpose of will, but they did not always seek truth, applied right action, had the patience and discernment for the greater whole, like the Queen and the King that we will see where he has a complete sword being shown. So that's the symbolic aspect of the Rider-Waite deck, showing that sword completed when we get to the Queen and the King in the court cards. Her sword, though, is not one that is being active because it's resting here on the arm of her throne. Now, it's the right hand, and you can see that it's down, it's not active. But what is active is her left hand, and that indicates that she's seeking additional insight, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, as well as it is a gesture welcoming those who maybe are wishing to consult her or listen to what she has to share. There's also the importance of being a good listener in this card, and that is shown by the braid here in her hair, which we'll discuss a little bit more shortly. But for now, what I'd like to do is go to what most people are always questioning. And there's two schools of thought about this, and it's always, what is the meaning or the interpretation of the tassel on her left hand? Now, the left hand again has to do with the past, it has to do with the feminine side, and it also has to do with receptivity. We know, again, there's two thoughts on this. I'm going to discuss what the author, practitioner, and almost a scholar of the tarot, which is Rachel Pollack. She says that the tassel looks like a cut rope, and that the Queen used her sword of intellect to cut through the past and gain knowledge and understanding of it. Now, there's other people who say that it is a braided cuff, a braided ornament with a tassel. And that was an indication of widowhood. And it is still used in practice today, worn and practiced today in some of the Eastern countries. Now, the tassels are said to also represent a transition, and certainly that would be workable for what Rachel Pollack says as far as the pain and the sorrows of the past. She's cut herself free from that, so she's transitioned, as well as a woman who was once married and now a widow, how her life has been transformed from that loss. Now, I would like to add some other meanings that I understand through looking up symbology. Whenever there is something braided, like the cuff on her left hand, it's beginning with, let's say, one piece of rope or one entity, and then it unites it with another. And together they join, they become stronger, and they form a unity. And it is greater now that it is united. It's more than their individuality. And it is symbolic of marriage. And I've seen this in a marriage ceremony where the person who was doing the vows of marriage brought that symbolism as a part of the couple's union, and they were together now as a whole working for one purpose. The tassel, of course, in modern times today, we see on the side of the graduation cap, and basically it indicates that we started out maybe naive as a candidate of knowledge, and now we have graduated because we've learned and we're at that next level. Now, there's a mystical symbolism of the tassel. It is one that indicates it's a talisman, and that is also said to protect and give power to whoever is wearing it. And certainly her open hand is saying, I am here, trust me. I have the ability to understand and maybe to provide you with some sort of higher knowledge, whatever that may be. So it really goes hand in hand with both schools of thought, and I really think that it's up to us to how we want to interpret that. But it does indicate that there is this need, or there is a position of power and higher knowledge, and that this woman is capable of receiving that she's earned it. Now, the Queen also shows one who has overcome the struggles of life in other ways. Number one, she's well, I shouldn't say she. The card's image shows that she has put herself in a higher state of consciousness. What we see here is a division in the card, a very obvious division. She's seated where the upper part of the card is all in blue, and the bottom part of the card is all clouds. Now, clouds symbolize dreams, mysteries, what is veiled, what is still laid hidden. And her sword, though, is also an indication of intellect and reasoning. And that's where her head is, above the clouds. And we see in the clearness just one bird. And birds usually indicate clear vision, aspirations, spiritual aspirations, but here it indicates that she has concise and focused thought process. And it connects her with the, it also means singularity, and that's what connects her to maybe being alone or a widow as well, that one bird. The other thing that I want you to note here is that, yes, her head and her vision are above the clouds. So they're clear, they're insightful, they're unobstructed. And so is her left hand. So she's able to receive and hear eloquently. She's also she listens as well as she speaks, because we have this union here of that braid that I spoke of earlier, the conscious and unconscious, and knowing when to speak and to be able to listen attentively and not have a quick respond, a judgmental respond to what someone is saying or even what she's observing. What is being shown here is that she still has work to do. And the work, of course, because she's still a queen, supposedly we have not reached the king stage, but she's not completely above the clouds at the heart chakra. So there's a little more healing to do at the heart center. Now also keep in mind that the suit of swords has to do with strife, the need for courage, which she has, and like air, that everything is always moving and changing. Some say that having only one side of her face shows that the left side has not been revealed. And the left side indicates the unknown, the unseen, that is the unconscious. Yet to communicate what she does know is the right side. So it is something that has transformed her, that she's experienced, and she's qualified to share. So with all that being said, I think I also want to talk about that her throne faces just one side. It's on its side. Now, some esoteric schools indicate that she is determined, she is in a state of continuously learning. She's seeking knowledge. So I think that also goes hand in hand with what we said. There's more for her to learn by not showing the left side of her face, but that the way the throne is positioned and she's facing the right side for what is to come, ready to learn, the changing views, the changing times, increased knowledge, that it is a card that is seeking proper balance. Okay, so we can say that this indicates a woman who is, of course, a professional. She could be a doctor. She could be an advisor. This card comes up for someone who is a social worker or a counselor, an educator, sometimes a lawyer, a writer, someone who's very diplomatic, can see both sides of a situation and judge fairly. Someone who is quite observant and perceptive and very intelligent. Now, other things this card can represent is success in intellectual pursuits. Maybe you're going back to learn. You will pass exams. There's academic achievements. You could be getting an award in speaking, writing, maybe asked to speak. You may be asked to be a spokesperson for someone and represent them. Now, sometimes this card turns up and there's usually the question that we may want to ask is, am I being rational and objective? Are we using our minds and maybe closing off our hearts? Sometimes are we too analytical about a situation? Are we walking the talk? And when this card comes up reverse, we could be scattered in our thoughts and our actions. Sometimes it indicates nervous energy, lack of sleep, lack of peace of mind, fear of moving forward and making a decision. It may also indicate someone who is unreliable if we're going to look at the personality, untrustworthy, deceptive, maybe gossipy or fault-finding, insensitive, resentful, bitter, maybe even sarcastic, and doesn't tolerate others very, very well. Okay, let's move on to the Queen of Pentacles. Here we have water and earth, elements that are very compatible and productive in nature. Nothing will grow unless we water the earth and give it that nourishment that it needs. We're talking about here the fixed sign of Taurus, a sign that is associated with practicality and nature. Taurus people are steadfast, they're dependable. The Taurus sign represents the bull, very powerful. They are forceful. Taurus are usually very grounded. And if we think of the bull, they're very powerful, and they seem to kind of push away the earth beneath them before they charge ahead. It's almost like a warning, you know. They don't. Taurus women can tolerate, and then all of a sudden it says, okay, I've had enough, I'm warning you, it's gonna be heck to pay here. Now, the other earth signs that we have to associate with the Queen of Pentacles, the other earth signs are Virgo and Capricorn. And we see that Capricorn right here when we have the goat on one side. Only one side of her throne is being shown. Now, let's look at this, folks. The colors on this card are worldly, meaning it seems like we have the whole rainbow. We have blues, we have greens, we have yellows, we have red, we have white, we have brown, we have black, and we have gray. There's apples and pears carved out at the back of her throne, and there are 3 gnomes. Remember, gnomes are her guardian elementals, looking over her shoulder. And there's 2 there, and then there's one kind of really it reminds me of a fetal position on the side of her throne. And having number 1 gives us the symbol and the aspect of creativity, but there's also that rebirthing process of nature, of having the fetal position of this gnome or embryo. And of course, this is definitely a fertile card, and it's earth filled with richness and fertility and certainly beauty. We have growth being shown here. We have beautiful roses and the fruits, of course, on her throne. And there is this feeling that the world is a kind, loving, nurturing place. We also see really down below here a rabbit in a leaping motion. And in Jungian terms, what a rabbit symbolizes, the archetype of the mother. And of course, I like to think of the Queen of Pentacles and the way that she looks at her pentacle as the goddess of nature. She's very, very creative and very, very powerful. Okay, now, like this creativity, I like to also show that everything has to do with nature, has to do with the 4 seasons and timing, because there are places in this card that are barren, and then there are the green grasses. So it's really kind of differentiating the different stages of nature, when to plant, when to reap, when to fertilize, and when to harvest. Now, her white garment, or her garment, really has to do with that purity that is the main essence of her being. And the way that she holds the pentacle on her lap with both hands is almost like what we would do holding a child. But she's finding magic in the natural world, because pentacles symbolically, yes, do mean the earth, do talk about tangible, do talk about finances, but it's also the magical coin, the magic that we see in the 5-pointed star, which also represents man. So taking that into consideration, as well as she is the goddess of nature, she's very passionate about her feelings and intent of what she wants to produce. And we see that because the pentacle sits on her red garment. Also, she is the only queen that wears a green cap of what Arthur Waite called a cap of maintenance. And basically what that means, it's a garment worn by mobility underneath their crown to show that they maintain the spiritual alignment with the higher powers or deities. And her crown really is a little below the brow. We could say the brow chakra, the third eye chakra. And that really indicates that she understands her own innate power within her, the 7 chakras, and how to utilize them and how to be creative with them. The Queen of Pentacles also reminds us that what we perceive in the outer world is a reflection of those qualities in ourselves. And I like to bring that out, almost like how, you know how we frame things, we mirror things, we form boundaries, and we see that in this the vine of red roses of desires with the growth, and that frames her, let's say, her intention of how she perceives things and her creative ability in this beautiful yellow background. So what is some of the meanings? The Queen of Pentacles can represent a down-to-earth, sensible, and wise woman. And I like to kind of also bring that to your attention, because she is the only queen that has both feet on the ground, which leads me to go back here and say, in the Queen of Swords, we have the right foot indicating the desire to continue to create, because it sits on a yellow pavement here. But here the Queen of Pentacles is grounded. She has both feet on the ground. It indicates someone who likes to share, is resourceful. Sometimes there's a feeling like giving value to things and making sure that people use those resources that we have given them as a gift in a productive way. Now, Wade also kind of describes the Queen of Pentacles as having the greatness of soul. And I think that's important, because we see so much nature, and we want to bring in that sense of the spirituality. And certainly we can see that spirituality with the blue mountains. Now, mountains are desire to obtain. Having them blue and equally on both sides of her, the past and the present, is that unfoldment of that higher self, that unconscious within her. So this card can sometimes indicate someone who's interested in banking, certainly accounting, food services, homeopathy, excuse me for mispronouncing that. There's an artistic nature. Sometimes this card indicates someone who does sculpting, any kind of artwork. It could be a card where someone is interested in healing the body through massage, chiropractor, physical therapists, and uses their hands and the healing modalities that are natural. Now, this card can also depict other things other than a person, and the importance of, it's a reminder in the importance of understanding the natural process within us, what's going on within us, our innate abilities to also heal ourselves physically and emotionally. We have that power. The proper use of what the world offers us and supplies us, the power of regeneration, the power of sexuality, and the joy and experiencing with our natural five senses that are given to us when we are born. Also finding what your talents are and making good use of them. Sometimes this card comes up because you're looking to accomplish security, whether that's in the material world or the financial world. When this card comes up reverse, it could be an untrustworthy woman. It could be the misuse of power and resources, wastefulness, or one whose life is unstable and unproductive. It's a reminder to ground while we use our senses. You know, getting grounded when we're ready to create, or when we're ready to heal, or when we're ready to do divination, how important it is. So when this card comes up, it's a reminder of that. Reverse meaning can be depression, lack of creativity, not finding purpose where you are right now, still seeking your roots. Who am I? Maybe what's going on? What do I value? This regenerating of the self, physically and emotionally, trying to find out what our talents are and putting them to good use, and questioning whether they can support us and our lifestyle. So I guess the last thing that I want to say is sometimes this card is asking us to check in. Are we taking time out in our busy lifetimes to nurture ourselves and feed our souls? What feeds our souls? And are we taking time out to do that? So I'm going to end it there, folks. Thanks so much for joining me today. Love to have your comments. If you have any questions on these or any other of the videos, please go ahead and take the time out to email me, or leave it in the comment. Leave your questions. Thanks, everyone. I'll be back soon as we look at what the kings and what they indicate in the court cards. Blessings for now. Bye-bye.